Well, we're interrupting our film for a news report from Peter Sissons.
And there it is, the picture that tells the story. The first picture of Terry Waite in 4 years and 10 months. He's just entered the room at the Syrian Foreign Embassy in Damascus with his fellow released hostage, the rather pale figure. One person away from him, he's talking to him now, the figure of Tom Sutherland, the American who was released with him earlier today. And they're scheduled here in this packed room for a brief news conference. Let's see if we can hear what's going to be said. Thinner, greyer, but very much Terry Waite. And we've lost the picture there tantalizingly. After only a few moments, we'll get it back as soon as we can. In fact, it's back there now, but it really is pandemonium in there.
تيري ويت وتوماس ساذرلاند قد تكللت أخيرا بالنجاح، ومن الطبيعي أن ارتياحنا لن يكتمل إلا بعد إطلاق سراح باقي الرهائن. تعلمون جميعا أن سوريا بتوجيه ثابت.
You're watching one of the Syrian officials, possibly the Deputy Foreign Minister, who has just handed over Terry Waite and Tom Sutherland to the British and American ambassadors, respectively. There's Tom Sutherland over his shoulder. We may in a moment get a translation of his remarks, but too much to expect at this particular moment. Let's see, are we getting the picture again?
ونحن نأمل أن تتكلل جهودنا بالنجاح.
Well, with me while we wait for a translation or wait to hear from Terry Waite or Tom Sutherland, Brian Hanrahan is with us. Brian, how does Terry Waite look to you?
Well, compared to the last time I saw him, he looks remarkably similar for a man who's been locked up for that number of years. He is thinner, he is slightly greyer and more pinched, but he's beaming away very much like he used to and does seem to be very much in control of himself and events there.
I think we're hearing some English now. Can we hear the sound again from Damascus?
That we don't feel relief completely unless all other hostages be released. All of you know that Syria, under the continuous instructions from President Hafez al-Assad and with the help and cooperation of the Islamic Republic of Iran, has exerted a lot of effort to get all hostages be released, starting from the humanitarian principle. And Syria will continue in its effort to get the release of the remaining hostages. We hope that our effort will succeed in closing the file of hostages before the end of this year. Thank you.
Your Excellency, I should like to thank you most warmly for the help which the Syrian government has given in achieving the release of Terry Waite. I should also like to thank the Secretary General of the United Nations and his Special Representative. There will be an enormous sense of pleasure and relief in England at Terry's release. He is held in special esteem, not only because he is the representative of the Archbishop, but also because of the courage that he has displayed and the sacrifice that he has made for the release of other hostages. This is the end of a chapter. It is not the end of the book. There are still other hostages held, and the British government will continue to work with all its efforts until...
Well, we've lost the picture again. I'm not surprised, frankly. There's so much pushing and shoving there. I'm amazed that most of the wires don't get pulled out. But we were hearing there from the British ambassador in Damascus, Andrew Green, thanking the Syrians and the Iranians for helping to procure the release of Terry Waite and Tom Sutherland. And before that, the Syrians themselves emphasizing the efforts that they had made with the Iranians to bring those releases about. Brian Hanrahan, they're emphasising already that there could be 5 more releases before Christmas. Do you think this is realistic? Because we mustn't forget the 5 men still left there.
Well, Perez de Cuellar is saying that he has been promised by the Iranian government, who are the key players in this, and by the hostage groups themselves, that they will have everybody out by Christmas. He says he doesn't know if he can trust it, but nonetheless that's what he says he's been promised. This seems to be a well-trod path that we've been seeing there at Damascus. Terry Waite, we know, has already been talking to Syrian journalists inside the Syrian Foreign Ministry before he was brought out and presented to the world's press, which is the normal trick that they play on these occasions.
I think we may, if you just pause a moment, Brian, be able to hear Terry Waite on that earlier feed. Or we may indeed be able to recover the picture.
For having captured you. We recognize that now this was a wrong thing to do. That holding hostages achieves no useful, constructive purpose. He went on to say that before the end of the month, Joseph Sicipio and Alan Steen would be released. We hope within the next 5 days. He furthermore said that by the end of the month, Terry Anderson would be set free. I asked him then about the German hostages, and I'm sorry to say that at that point he could give me no further positive information, but he did say that he hoped very much that that matter too would be cleared up eventually and as soon as possible. That, to us, is encouraging and good news. And so, therefore, thank you all very much. There are many, many other things to say, but enough for the moment.
No question now.
The voice of Terry Waite, live from Damascus. We unfortunately lost the pictures, but it was plain enough. There was the voice of the man who was last heard on, January the 20th, 1987, released today with the American hostage who'd been there for 6.5 years, Tom Sutherland, giving his first reaction in a faltering but still that familiar and firm manner, and perhaps breaking a little bit with emotion towards the end, but promising most significantly, as we were just talking, Brian, that within the next few days, the 3 remaining American hostages would also be free, but not the 2 remaining Germans.
Yes, the Germans, of course, are tied up with a separate dispute about a couple of Shiites who are being held in German jails who've been convicted, so they're not hostages in the sense that these are hostages. Indeed, we're back now, I think, to
without judicial process and
Damascus.
for continued cooperation.
I think we may be hearing the American ambassador.
Including the UN Secretary General and his personal representative, whose work we greatly appreciate. Thank you very much.
And here's Tom Sutherland.
Mr. Deputy Foreign Minister, Mr. Ambassador from the United States, Mr. Ambassador from the United Kingdom. As some of you may know, I'm an old college prof.
Well, Tom Sutherland, an academic at the American University of Beirut.
It's about 5 times longer than I've had to go to the bathroom every day for the last 7 years, but that's another story. I would like to especially thank, as did Terry Waite a moment ago, the government of Syria for all that they have done in those past months and years on our behalf. And I can tell you that in the past hour or so, hour and a half perhaps, we have been treated very, very nicely by some of the representatives of the government of Syria. And we've had a very happy time joking with them and laughing out loud for the first time for a long time. I remember laughing out loud in a basement cell once with Brian Keenan, who accused me of telling lots of stories, but, you know, that was really a case of the pot calling the kettle black, because as an Irishman, he had 10 times more stories than anybody else. Anyway, I want to thank the government of Iran as well, because we understand from listening to the radio consistently over the last 2.5 years or so, that the government of Iran has been playing an important role. As recently as the government of Israel, and Mr. Yuri Librani has been quite instrumental in negotiating very well for our release.
Well, we've been watching Tom Sutherland and Terry Waite give their first reactions and paying generous tribute to the nations that helped to secure their release, Syria and Iran. And we're joined now by John Waite, Terry Waite's cousin. What's your reaction seeing him there for the first time in practically 5 years?
Well, I believe it now, Peter. I haven't really believed it all day, but I obviously do. But it is amazing. He looks really well. I mean, he's lost weight, clearly, and his voice has a little quaver in it. And I know his voice, you know, very, very well indeed. But both he and the way he spoke, and Tom Sutherland, I think look much better than they have any right to after all they've been through. As he said, chained up until earlier this afternoon.
Well, we must not forget, must we, that for 4/5 of his time in captivity, he was in solitary confinement, part of that time chained to a radiator or a wall, driven mad by an electric generator, as Brian Keenan reminded us, moaning in the night. This was not a pleasant experience for anybody, but he's come through it. What does that tell you about his constitution?
What it tells me, Peter, is what I always suspected all along, you know, which is that he's a very remarkable man, and that, you know, if anyone is going to survive this intact, it was going to be Terry. He had his faith, of course, that took him there in the first place, and I'm sure stood him in good stead while he was there, and he had the love and the faith, of course, of his family. He is a larger-than-life character. I've never met anyone like him. I always expected him to come through well, and so he has.
And if we could go back to the feed from Damascus, you can see a big close-up there of Tom Sutherland, etched with his experience of 6.5 years as a hostage.
Like Terry Waite again.
Brian, what would you expect to be the next step? Are they going to get them out of there tonight?
Those two, the talk is they may stay there tonight and get a chance to rest, because they have had a tiring day, if nothing else. Never mind a tiring 5 years. And then they'll be on a plane straight out tomorrow. They'll probably fly to Cyprus maybe as soon as possible. And then they'll be back to London, to Lynham tomorrow, to go through the sort of decompression which everyone has to go through under these periods in order to try and bring them back to being a full person without shattering them by such an exposure to the outside world.
And the church bells in London will be ringing at 7 o'clock tomorrow across the capital for Terry Waite. And you can now see, of course, more of that and catch up on the rest of the day's news and the background to it in the 9 o'clock news over on BBC One. But from us, for now, good evening.
Well, now we're going to rejoin our film about the young ballerina from the Midwest, Mirrors.